All right. So David started this project and developed it in late 2012, got the first version up running, and then with Roberto and a number of other, Jimmy and a bunch of other people. I came on in March and started helping out, and we've been pushing it forward since then. So the question is why look at the data on the jail system? And the interesting thing is every time we show this and talk about it to people, people have tremendous number of questions. And if you look over there on the wall, you can see a model of how people interact with the jail. They're charged, they judge before a judge, they may get bail, the charges may be dismissed, or they're put into a housing location and they go back to court locations and back and forth. They may go into electronic monitoring, drug rehab bill, or, and then after some period of time, they may end up in prison or they become free. So this is the interactions that we have. But people have lots of questions around this.
All right, so Cook County Jail is notoriously, corrupt and slow and overly complicated.
Just a little editorializing.
A little bit, just a little bit. So, these are a few of the questions that we've come across. So one of the first is how much does it cost to run? So apparently about $500 million per year, or $143 per day. Now, some of the questions that we've managed to answer using our system are how many people are arrested on average. As you can see there, about 192 people, skewed heavily towards the males. How many people are in the system? So that's about 14,000 or so as of yesterday, Friday, I believe. And then how many people are booked in a day, or the highest number of people booked in a day, which is about 283, February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day. Yes. Pretty, yeah.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is when you see this data and you get an answer like that, then it leads to all these other speculations. And then we see people say, well, which race has the most? And unfortunately, the data does confirm that it is blacks. Which age has the highest number of inmates being charged? It's 20. This is also another disturbing fact. But this is the reality of it, and it's good to get this information out so that people can see it and consider what things we can do about it. And we have a lot of other questions.
Yeah, so there are a few that we haven't answered yet, like how is the system treating people, especially people with mental illness or just the general conditions of the system? How long people are in the system for a given charge, like nonviolent offenders versus violent offenders. How many of those are marijuana charges? Is gender or race a factor in the bail rates? And in some of our data, it kind of seems that way, but we don't want to make that assumption. Are the judges gender or race biased? That's a bit more difficult to determine because they don't want to release the data on that. But is there a correlation between race and length in the jail system? And is there a correlation between charges and conviction rates, plus any number of other questions that we happen to think of or that happen to come to us by new people?
Right. So how do we answer these questions? Given that we start with a page that looks like this. This is it. This is all we have to work with. We understand this model, but this is the only data that the Cook County Sheriff's website gives us.
And so what we capture from that would be, so as you can see here, we capture a lot of the information from it, but not all of the information from it for privacy concerns. So we capture things like the booking ID, the race, and that sort of thing, but we don't take their name and we don't take their date of birth. What we do with the birth dates is just we calculate the age and then store the age.
Right. But our trick is we capture every single day. 8 o'clock in the morning, we scrape the website. Approximately 12,000 records are captured every day. And through that, we get to see the changes. We know that people's court dates changes. We know that they change the housing locations. They change the charges. And this is reflected in this data, but it's only that snapshot. But by taking a snapshot every day, we build up this profile of information. So we can start to answer these questions. How long were they in there? What this? Did we see them move and forward, backwards? So we're going to talk a little bit about our system.
All right, so when we're scraping the Cook County Sheriff's Office, and by the way, you can always go to their website and search through the inmate records. But after scraping the individual inmate pages and dumping them to a database, if you call that data, you get a lot of this raw repository data in JSON format, as we saw with Will's presentation.
Right.
So not very pretty. Not very pretty. I don't think anyone wants to read this. So.
Okay, but just a little side note. This is the overview of how the system works. Here is the Cook County Sheriff's website. 8 o'clock in the morning, our scraper runs, grabs the data, and puts it into the database here. And from that, we can serve it up in different formats. Some people want to do data analysis, and so they ask for it in comma-separated forms. They bring in an Excel spreadsheet or various other things. But we also created a visualization of it, which we call 26th in California, which takes the JSON format that Matt showed you in the previous thing and formats it in a nice, pretty form. Let me just see if I can, whoops. So, that's not exactly what I wanted, but here we go. Here is what that page looks like. And here's a summary view of all of the inmates per day. And
So much better, isn't it?
yes. I also do want to point out that we had data collection problems in this period, so that data isn't what we consider to be really usable. And in the next version of this website, we're going to eliminate that, so that we're just serving up, but we're keeping it around now at this point in time. Some other more interesting visualizations, and one in particular I want to bring that I like showing people is this one here. This one shows female age at booking by race. And in statistical terms, this is called a bimodal distribution. In other words, bimodal means two humps. So and we see here in the age 40, which is the interesting one, is that there is women crime rates go up in the 40s. So it's an interesting speculation as to why. Again, go back to that thing. You see something and that leads to all sorts of interesting questions.
In the highest rate is 21, or is that 20?
For women, it's 21. Now, if you, yes.
The key, what's WH and what's W, what's U?
That is the interesting question. This is the categorization that
Yes.
the Cook County Sheriff does, but they haven't explained to us what they are. Our speculation is W and WH is white, and B and BK is black of two forms.
Oh, maybe white Hispanic.
Could be. And then you have LB, LT, LW. So I'm sorry. Well, the green here is black. That light blue here is white. Well, would it be white Hispanic? We don't know. 5 minutes. Okay. Let's just quickly contrast that with what it looks like for males. And see, it's a different graph.
What was the total? The total number is much higher.
Yeah, well, you see you're here 2,300, this,
Is that 17 or 18?
that's 20.
20?
Yeah.
It's still too low. But not bad.
Right.
Statistically, they don't consider it. They call this a Poisson distribution, even though there is that little here.
So you see a bit more sowing of wild oats amongst the men and then a mellowing out over the years, generally,
All right.
so to say.
So that was formatted for human consumption. Very quickly, the technology.
All right, so on the subdomain for recovered factory, if you'll remember Dave's presentation from earlier, explaining the name behind it. We use Python for the back-end language, as well as Postgres for the databasing. The scraper is written in Python, and there's currently a second branch to separate it from other bits of the code. And for 26th in California, subdomain.